trends that you're seeing in terms of how the market is investing in fintech right now?
You know, as I've spent some time here at Money 2020, I think, one of the themes certainly has been around digital, whether that is what companies are doing with their own technology through APIs, through open technology, or what the market is thinking about in terms of blockchain. That's certainly been one of the resounding themes here of how they're thinking about protecting assets and creating, digital currencies.
And let's flip that on its head. What are fintech companies investing in right now?
It's maybe one of the most dynamic markets, but I think some of the things that fintechs are investing in, certainly we talk a lot about the underbanked, the number of people who don't have access to currency, the people who do, and what the actual, how we charge them, how we find out what products that they should have. But I think more and more it is becoming about fraud and protecting identity and making sure that we have traceable routes for currency.
And which are the top things you think fintech companies should be doing right now, but also looking ahead a little bit, so to 2018?
One of the themes that's come out in other parts of the market, there's a new theme that's called Gdpr, which is the General Data Protection, regulations. I think it would be interesting to forecast and see what other regulatory wins, headwinds or tailwinds, might be forecasted into finance. Today we think about protecting our own very set of consumers, those who use cards, don't use cards, use different currencies. Payday lending, that's obviously been a high topic of focus of both regulatory interest as well as investment interest. And so I think having them think about what sort of regulatory, what wins, headwinds or tailwinds, would be really interesting to look forward to.
And which are the top threats or, say, challenges that fintech companies are facing?
Data, certainly. How do they protect it? How do they secure it? There's still a bit of a land grab as we think about digital share. We've moved from paper to digital currencies, and as we think about where that goes, it's forecasting into where consumers are likely to spend. How do we think about millennials versus the generations X, Y, and Z, and again making sure that we have products that are appropriate for ever-looming generations.
And how do you think Galileo is uniquely positioned to help fintechs respond to both these opportunities but also these challenges?
Yeah, Galileo's developed an amazing platform. Over 20 years, they're regarded as one of the most stable platforms, both in the processing and the program management side. Galileo is probably a technology company first, if I think about the experience, the expertise, the leadership that's in place. They spend more time thinking about the technology, the underlying technology, to make sure that systems have a very high uptime. We think about it to make sure that when I have a debit card and I want to purchase a product, that's going to go through with a high degree of confidence. So when we talk about 999 with 6 nines, that's something that Galileo strives for. One of the things that we continue to be very impressed with, again, in thinking about what they do, there are very few companies that can talk about what we think of as ROI on spend. Most of them are expense management. Galileo has specific technologies that help to protect and remove fraud from the system. And if I think about myself as either as an end user customer or as a client, Galileo has technology that helps keep my money safe.
And out of all the innovations that Galileo has already brought to market, which one do you think is the most important right now?
Right now, I think there's a high importance placed on the fraud. They do it better than anybody else in their industry. They're able to drive significant operating margin back to their clients, and I think that more and more emphasis will be placed on the data piece, what they have, what they control, how they can predict in real time with AI and machine learning what something might look like in their industry.
Sure. And which Galileo innovations do you think will have the most potential over the next 2 years or so in the near future?
Yeah, they're forward thinking. Because they have such a stable platform, they have the ability to walk into something that looks like Bitcoin or Ethereum or any of the various technologies that we've talked about today and help people be able to unlock value from digital to physical. And so I think it's them thinking about how to further leverage their technologies. They've made a unique announcement over the last couple of weeks about opening up their APIs. So the first time they're inviting other developers into their sandbox, which simulates a production environment. They have the ability to test in real time and deploy at the same time as business development decisions are made so that there's no delay. So I'm really proud of the technology that they've been able to release to the market.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Ryan.